This is my poem, My Childhood's Future. My childhood's future took us to the stars, to unknown worlds, to strange and new frontiers. And there we made our interstellar wars. In space we still could not outrun our fears. We fell back to the earth, then farther still, to inner space, where on the nanoscale we aimed to make ourselves by our own will. Our technomancy surely couldn't fail. We failed to count the cost when we aspired to have I want, I choose replace what's best. We say, my truth, it only makes us liars. So we are hollow now, with empty chests, adrift on fractal currents of desire, and hoping beyond hope to find true rest. So my poem, My Childhood's Future, has been a really fun one to work on. I've, in fact, been working on this poem for 10 years before it took its final form in the ENC Journal. And I originally wrote it, the first draft of it, in 2011, prompted by the last voyage of the space shuttle Atlantis. And for me, that struck a real chord, a sort of sadness, because as a girl, I was a huge Star Trek fan. And let's just say I am still a huge Star Trek fan. But as a girl, I had grown up watching the original 1960s Star Trek in reruns. And then I watched Star Trek The Next Generation when it came on as a new program. And just this was a really major part of my sort of childhood's future, this idea that we're going to go out and boldly go where no one has gone before, explore strange new worlds. And then the space shuttle is grounded. That's the end of an era. And I felt a real sadness, and I wrote the first draft of this poem, but it didn't quite cohere. I tried to get it published, it was rejected, and I understood that it just wasn't where it needed to be. And so it sat in my files for years until this past year in rereading C.S. Lewis's Abolition of Man, because I was also reading Michael Ward's new book, After Humanity, which is a guide to abolition of man, and thinking about this idea of the chest and of what it means to be human and what happens if we abolish humanity, what happens after humanity. And this got me thinking again about the theme of this search for meaning and this search for beauty and excitement in our lives. So that was another element in this poem coming together. And then also in 2021, William Shatner, who played the original Captain Kirk on Star Trek, the original series, went into space with Jeff Bezos's orbiter. And when they came down, Shatner was just full of emotion. He was almost visibly in tears, saying how deeply moved he was by this experience. And I was moved because this was my childhood starship captain who had gone into space. And then I noticed that in the news reports of it, they just skimmed over the wonder that he was reporting and almost like dismissive of it, as if it were not really very interesting. And then I looked up in Wikipedia the account of it, and it said that, Shatner experienced the overview effect, a cognitive shift in awareness reported by some astronauts during spaceflight. So they just dismissed his sense of the beauty and fragility of the Earth that he was moved by seeing it. They just labeled it. It's the overview effect. It happens. And I thought how utterly tragic that is, that here we have someone who had taken that journey imaginatively in the 1960s and now had taken the journey literally, physically in 2021 and had come back so moved by it, and nobody cared. And that tied in with the reflections about the chest sparked by reading After Humanity and Abolition of Man again. That brought everything together into the current version of this poem, that it all finally cohered. And that's where we get My Childhood's Future.